Hello, everyone, again. Uh, in the supercut, we just saw each other from the middle part of the lecture, the sort of, I guess, midterm summarizing bit. Where I wanted to go now, the last part speaking to tools and applications, is that I do feel it would be beneficial for anybody to know pretty well the ins and outs of at least one type of productivity suite. So, when I'm talking about productivity suites, what I'm referring to is these packages of programs that have a word processing program like Microsoft Word or a presentation software such as Google Slides or Excel sheets, um, sorry, Google Sheets, Excel. Um, I guess it's just Excel workbooks. That's what they're called. Um, I don't use Excel that much, if I'm being honest. So, but these are the kind of applications that are used in the course of everyday kind of work. So, I mean, many of you may already have experience as educators. Many of you have likely worked in other fields and other careers. Um, One thing that I will sort of put out there is that productivity apps themselves, depending on how they're used, can effectively provide most of the features of a learning management system or a content management system. So, what I'm going to sort of put out there in terms of like similarities, in terms of what applications or usage it may potentially hold for you. Um, to begin with, I tend to think of productivity suites as being associated with Microsoft Office 365 and or Google Apps. With 365, I'm not going to presume that everybody has had a ton of experience with this, but back not even that long ago, I don't think you have to even necessarily go back before 365 existed. When you wanted to use Microsoft Word, you had to go to the computer store or go online and buy a copy of that software and install it on your computer. Similarly, with PowerPoint or Excel or some of these other applications typically associated with work, um, 365, Office 365, is essentially a cloud based bundle of these apps. So, by cloud based, I mean it exists entirely on the internet without needing to actually have the software on your machine. And so, what that typically will involve is paying for an annual or monthly license for access to this set of applications, which include, in addition to the ones that I've already mentioned, there are some pretty specific apps that you can get, and you can sort of customize through your purchases what your license is going to include. So, for instance, Microsoft Project is used heavily by certain kinds of professionals. Um, I mean, there's just a really a pretty wide range of them, and to that extent, um, I tend to associate those apps, 365, with a workplace environment. So, for instance, when I worked at Thompson Rivers, the organization that I work for now, as well, provides every person who works for the organization an email address and a login ID that's associated with that email address. Or perhaps it's the other way around. Which came first, the user identity or the user email. I guess it's probably the identity. Anyway, so much like a learning management system, LMS, that we talked about earlier, I associate these apps with a firewall, an institutional or organizational sign in. Now, that does not have to be the case. And what I'm actually, as I recommended with WordPress or your CMS package, as I alluded to with Moodle Cloud or some of the other learning management system services, I feel like you're going to get your best advantage from these productivity suites by actually owning your own license, by spending whatever marginal amount it is per year to have access to those if you feel that you need them. Um, I would say that on the basis of the Google, necessarily something that you have to pay for to get benefit out of, but for the amount that it costs, I found myself that it's worth it to have, because I work on a few different machines for my personal work, apart from even just my subscription through work. So for my creative endeavors, for my own personal purpose, my consulting business, I have a subscription to Office 365, which again, it's based in the cloud, so I can access it from my laptop, my desktop, or my phone as needed, which is convenient. Now, I understand that in the school districts, I understand this because I have children in schools district 73, and every day I get reports about their activities in the Google learning environment. So it definitely is good to know the feature set of a word processing program and how to use it. Again, I think you wouldn't have made it this far into your education if you lacked that knowledge, probably. But it's worth it to emphasize the need to be proficient with word processing and software, and potentially, because if you have to do any amount of calculation, if you're looking at perhaps being the person in your department or office who is in charge of a budget somehow, or if you're running a budget even for a project or a workshop, then Excel can obviously be very helpful. So I differentiate the Microsoft Office 365 offering from the Google set of tools. The Google set of tools, um, you can get just by having a Gmail account. That's kind of the entry point. And with the Gmail account, establishing you in Google's infrastructure, as it were, you then have the ability to access, well, I mean, a whole plethora of apps, but notably documents, notably slides, notably sheets. And what is, I think, pretty cool about the powerful infrastructure that Google is able to command because of its huge search engine business and other apps is that you have the ability to take, for instance, Word documents or documents that might be in another format and upload those into your Google Drive, open them with the documents program, or the slides program or the sheets, and that will then render it in its own proprietary format, in Google's own proprietary format. And then it will let you, when you're finished, and if you wish to, not only can you share those with links, with live links to those documents or sheets or slides, setting them up with a level of permission that you're comfortable with, you have the ability to export them as a Word document or as some other format, as a PDF, for instance. So it's sort of a good way to move between formats. And I personally have found that the Google Docs as a collaborative tool is probably the lowest barrier in terms of a technology knowledge threshold to use a collaborative in a collaborative environment. Now, one of the problems, so-called, associated with the Google suite of tools is that while they are widely used throughout the school districts, they are there are very significant privacy concerns, especially to the extent that British Columbia has, to the best of my knowledge, among the most stringent privacy privacy laws, data privacy protection laws in Canada. So there are actually issues with using cloud-based services such as Google Docs with students at the higher education level. This is something that needs explicit sign off from individual students. And if you are thinking about doing this whatsoever within the context of higher education, I would recommend strongly checking in with the privacy officer at the university to see about that. But again, I feel like most of the people who are watching this are going to be pre-service teachers or educators who are going to be involved in the school districts. And I believe, as a parent, I'm fairly certain that every year I'm required to sign off giving the school district permission to use Google and other similarly publicly accessible applications. And again, one of the concerns, I guess, with some use of Google applications is that uh, all usage, of course, is monitored. All um, all of the analytics are going directly into Google, and there's not really any transparency in what happens with those analytics besides the obvious product development. So again, there are people with very strong opinions, and rightfully so, potentially, about that topic. So I think just it's important to have a good communication policy in place regarding any learning technology applications that you plan to use, but particularly those which are run by some of these larger tech companies and require setting up user accounts, which require then student names and potentially other information which may contravene people's privacy. And again, giving students the ability to opt out is very important. Again, I keep sort of thinking of this in terms of a higher education or post-secondary frame because that's where I've spent a lot of my career. Um, my, I guess, advice that I would put out there in terms of becoming acquainted with these tools is you should know how to use them. One or both of those sets of tools, Microsoft Office 365 and or Google applications, um, and just sort of maintaining that knowledge, using them in your own collaborative or work processes, even outside, for instance, having students engage with them, just being fluent with those tools will help ensure that you have kind of a higher level of digital literacy overall, which is something that you'll likely want to be able to model for your students. Students are looking to you for cues in terms of how their own learning should proceed. So, in seeing you as an educator who's working with them demonstrate competence or comfort or enjoyment, it's going to make it maybe seem a little bit easier for them to kind of take on those kinds of engagements and interactions in their own spheres of influence and in their own endeavors. So again, I guess in terms of course delivery, I would just say that it is definitely possible to run an online or distance-based course within the within a learning environment that exists inside of a suite of productivity apps, between Google Documents, between email just from Outlook or Gmail, between using YouTube and other streaming and video services. All of these applications can be used effectively for a teaching and learning purpose. It really depends whether you're looking at a learning management system offering, or whether you are looking at something that's more akin to a content management system or one of these productivity suites. They all have their place. They all have the capability to help you help your students, help you express yourself as an educator, and help your students express themselves as students. And they have the ability to really elevate a face-to-face learning environment through blended learning practice, or even in the event that you have the opportunity to use some of them for fully distance-based teaching, whether in the short or longer term. It really just sort of comes down to what your purpose is as a teacher, what your comfort levels are. And I think probably that's about all I'd want to say about the productivity apps, and being mindful perhaps of the amount of time that's gone into these videos, these segments. The supercut, if you will, I believe is probably in excess of an hour now. I promised Pam that I would keep it to about an hour. So, Dr. Gurney, I should say. So, I guess I would just say thanks very much for your attention. Thanks very much to Pam, to Dr. Gurney for inviting me for these past several lectures in these different courses. I really wanted to take the opportunity to kind of do this lecture, this discussion, focusing mainly on tools and bundles of applications on my own, owing to the fact that I did spend 4 years as a coordinator of learning technologies at Thompson Rivers. So I do like to revisit those areas of my past practice a bit if I can sometimes. But then also, I just really enjoy the opportunity to talk with you, to speak with you, to discuss and engage. So please feel free to put comments in the WordPress post where you're watching this video or listening to this audio. I will let them go for about a week. I will definitely approve them all immediately. And then about a week from now, I'll take any questions that have come up and speak to those in a separate video or blog post. So I guess that's probably it for now. Great to have the opportunity to speak with you today. Appreciate your time very much. Thanks again to Dr. Gurney for the invite to be here. Take care, and bye for now.